All right, this is a conflicts passage. It's passage 2 in this test. It's easy to see it's the one conflicts passage per test because it says scientist 1, scientist 2. We usually say scientist or experiment or student. In our DRC approach, C stands for conflicts, and carefully read. It flips what we do from the other two passages. We read a little more slowly, taking time to understand the passage before we go to the questions because it's a reading heavy passage. If you don't read first, you spend a lot of time going back and forth between the questions and the passage. Remember, conflicts is like trying to understand an unusual game, something you're not really familiar with. There's not much science knowledge, if any science knowledge, needed in all of the science tests, and conflicts is no different. Step 1 is to identify the conflict. It helps you to know and understand what you're looking for. So the conflict is usually the last sentence of the first paragraph. In this particular passage, it says, two scientists discuss whether the object was a comet or an asteroid. It's talking about an object that traveled through space in 1908 and caused some destruction, and whether it's a comet or an asteroid. That's it. That's the conflict. Step 2 is to identify the differences between the viewpoints. I like to make drawings. If you just want to annotate, that's fine, but drawings help me to provide clarity. So that's what we're going to be doing, is making drawings as I go through this. We're going to draw a picture to represent what we're reading. The object was a comet. So I'm going to draw a capital C, and I kind of turned it sideways so it's like hurling towards Earth. It's made of ice and dust, so I'm going to write ice and dust in the middle. I could have just written I and D. I could remember for as long as I need to remember this passage. It's volatile, low in density, so I just drew some lines to show that it's volatile, put low D for density. Exploded high above the ground, so I just did this explosion around it. Wrote the word high to say it was high above the ground. The majority of the ice and dust were vaporized, which explains why there's no crater. So I'm just putting an X to say it was all gone. This section is mostly about comparing to an asteroid. So I'm just going to know that's there. How an asteroid is different from a comet, because I know scientist 2 is going to argue why it's an asteroid. The object decelerated rapidly before it exploded. So I just put slowed. Probably should have put decelerated if I want to use the same words. Because of their low density, comets are capable of such rapid deceleration. So again, we have that low density there, right there, and high density objects such as asteroids are not. So it's, again, that last part's a comparison to asteroids. That's my drawing. Here's the actual drawing I made when I took the test. So you can see it's very similar. I got my explosion is just lines, low density, slow, ice and dust, comet. Pretty much the same idea. I just translated onto here what my drawing looked like when I took the test. Scientist 2, the object was a stony asteroid. So I just put an A and wrote the word stone in it. As it entered Earth's atmosphere, its high speed created a large air pressure difference between the area in front and the area behind. So I'm just doing some arrows to represent wind. The large pressure difference exceeded the structural strength of the asteroid. The asteroid flattened and decelerated rapidly. So I just made a new A and put a little tall, skinny one, right? Flattening it, wrote the word slow. And then so dramatically increased its surface area and fragmented, so it exploded. Drew a little explosion around it again. And then calculations show the comet between 10 and 100 meters in diameter would explode at an altitude higher than 8 kilometers, but a stony asteroid would fragment at or near 8 kilometers. So I just wrote 8 kilometers right in the middle of it. Again, that's also a comparison to comets. I know where to find that. Recovery of large asteroid fragments is difficult due to the area's boggy soil. So I'm going to draw just kind of a little wavy line to represent boggy soil, and however small glass fragments were recovered. And then here is my actual drawing from the test. Just my way, it helps me to understand it, to draw the picture. I've just learned through doing this a long time. It works for me and it works for a lot of students. Now as we approach the questions, my method is to read the question quickly and then do a reread, just breaking it down step by step. So we're going to do the reread together as I go through it on the video. Which of the following best describes the differences between the two scientists' hypotheses? Well, we have scientist 1, scientist 2, and I can already see the main difference is one says comet, One says asteroid, and that was actually the conflict itself. So it has to be choice J. You can look at the others to eliminate location of the event, speed, or density. Those are all wrong, right? The only one that works is going to be choice J, the type of object. According to scientist 2's viewpoint, compared to the altitude at which a stony asteroid would have exploded, a comet of a similar size most likely would have exploded at. And it tells us in the reading that a comet would explode at an altitude higher than 8 kilometers. So a higher altitude B. Scientist 1's viewpoint indicates that when materials compose most of the comet are sufficiently heated, they change to, well, it tells us in the reading, and we also drew it, the ice and dust, that's the materials. What happens to them? They're easily vaporized. They go away. What does that mean? They turn to gas. G. Number 9. Which of the following statements best describes how scientist 2 will explain why no large identifiable fragments of the objects have been recovered? What we see in the reading and in our drawing, large asteroid fragments was difficult to recover because of the boggy soil, which means choice D is correct. Number 10, scientist 2. How the behavior of the asteroid differ from that described in the viewpoint if the asteroid had not been flattened by air pressure. So the air pressure we can see from our drawing and from the reading, it slowed the comet, the asteroid rather. It says in the reading it decelerated rapidly. So if it had not, it would have decelerated more gradually. H. Which of the following statements would both scientists most likely use to explain the damage to the forest? Well, this one, you just need to really use reasoning. The forest is on Earth's surface, so the explosion traveled down rapidly to the Earth's surface, so A. Number 12, scientist 1's viewpoint would be weakened by which of the following observations about comets, if true? So comets are composed mainly of frozen materials. That's not weakened. The scientist says it's composed of frozen materials. Their comets are much larger than 100 meters in diameter. Well, we don't see that anywhere in scientist 1 explanation. We do see it in the intro. The object was between 10 meters and 100 meters in diameter. So if comets are much larger, then it wasn't a comet. So G. You can eliminate the other two as well. Passes close enough to Earth, often pass close to Earth. They orbit the sun. Neither of those would weaken the explanation of scientist 1. So G. Take a moment to look through the answers again if you need so. You can see that actually most of the answers came from scientist 2, which is quite interesting. So reach out if you have questions.